Welcome in to the Glory Day Sports Show, a very special edition. We're coming at you live off the cuff, not at our normal 7 a.m. Central Time. We'll still be here on Thursday joining you guys, but we have a great guest today, and I'm joined by my co-host, as always, Jonathan Miller at Esports Valen. You can follow me at all socials at Glory Day Sports. But we are joined today by one of the biggest names, if not the biggest name, to ever grace the Glory Day Sports Show, a veritable encyclopedia of Titans knowledge. He has been a constant presence in Titans football coverage since the beginning, a Nashville native and a true man of the people. His journey from covering high school sports to a Super Bowl is nothing short of a Cinderella story, from pen to paper to dial-up internet, and now in an era where AI can write an entire article from some of those sites that take the easy way out. He has witnessed it all that is the two-tone blue. He has seen the dark times and the good times as we navigate into this transitional period for the Titans. This isn't your father's football team. He is the senior writer and editor for TennesseeTitans.com. Jim Wyatt, welcome to the show.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate the great intro, the sound effects, good background of where I came from. And yeah, I've been around a long time, seen it all, I guess, since the days of the Titans way back in '99, and luckily still here. Covered it, for the Tennessean from '99 to 2015. And then 15, this is going on year 10 now with the team. It's hard to believe, but time flies by, a lot of changes, and hopefully some good times ahead.
We got to get Jim a ring, man. Like, let's just call it like we see it, right? I don't know. Jim, you'll have to, maybe you can confirm this or not, but I worked for the Dallas Mavericks for a couple of years, and they were really high on staff rings. Like, the staff got really excited because the staff get rings. It's obviously much different than the players, right? Not nearly as flashy, way less diamonds, but they get really nice championship rings. Is that the case for the Titans? Like I know franchise to franchise owners can make that decision. So is that the case for the Titans? Do you know if Miss Amy would hook you guys up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. That's a dangerous question to ask the owner. You got to win it first. Maybe if a team can win one, maybe I'd start asking around, start dropping hints on the ring size. But until then, I guess my wedding ring, you get a 3-pack of these for about $9.99. These little rubbery ones.
I got a few.
My grass.
I got to make the change.
Mine's grass one. I've got this little rubbery one, and I got a 3-pack for $9.99. That's the most expensive bling of a ring that I've got.
Awesome.
Love it.
Well, if you guys are joining us for the first time, as we hope many of you are, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, do all the socials. But we're hopping into it. If anything, this is a live Ask Jim mailbag, which is renowned around all of the Titans media. But you've, like you said, been with the Titans since 2015, covering them since 1999, witnessing 6 different coaching staffs in that time span. To start, what just stands out about this new staff that's coming in, and what sets them apart maybe from previous regimes?
Yeah, I'll still a lot to be determined with this group, because I've always talk about how relaxed everyone seems to be, whether it's the staff or whether it's the players, and how there's just almost like a breath of fresh air when a new coach takes over. And it's hard to know whether that's change and newness, because there's been a lot of that, not only on the staff, but on the roster. And but also, hard to know how much of that is just May, June feelings, knowing that things are a little bit different when the season starts and the stress is a lot higher and you're faced with adversity. I mean, you look around the league, all 32 teams, everybody's feeling good about themselves this time of year. But you start playing games in September and October, November, and maybe things look different. I think I saw Brian Callahan. We had kind of a wrap-up day. I guess guys, a day when it wasn't open to media, but it was kind of a Titans Olympics event, kind of a casual day before everybody went their separate ways. Last week, and I was talking to Brian Callahan. I was telling him just about how much different the feel is now, and how guys have said that, and I even said to him, I know it may be different when the season comes, when the pressure is higher, but I've noticed a positive change from that standpoint. And he said, he goes, hey, it shouldn't change. we're going to coach these guys the same way. We're going to treat them the same way. We know we're going to deal with some ups and downs. We know everything's not going to be easy, but his mindset and his kind of his purpose when he got here was to try to make guys feel more relaxed and to have fun and to enjoy what they're doing. So we'll see how that goes. And I'm not trying to throw shade on Vrabel here, but there were a lot of guys that were, kind of admittedly uptight and on edge and not as carefree as maybe they wanted to be, just because that wasn't the feeling in the building. And I think people felt like they had to be perfect around him. People felt like they had to act a certain way. People were beaten down by some of the ways he coached and handled his business. And now we'll see what a new regime can do and what kind of changes will take place.
Are you picking up, like, vibe wise? You kind of answered the question already that I was going to ask, but I guess a follow up to that would be, obviously the hope is that every teacher, every coach that comes in and makes an impact on your franchise, especially the way that Vrabel did, like, the fan base can get upset how the tenure kind of ended, but nobody can take away the impact that he made on this franchise from how things got started, the run that we had in 2019 and the consistency that we had across his tenure. Is obviously the hope is that players, staff, franchise folk, like everybody in the city, really, fans, are impacted by that coach as they're leaving. Do you think that maybe some of the sternness or maybe some of the positive things of the aftermath of Mike Vrabel are still there? And assuming Coach Callie is trying to tap into that as well. But for you, as kind of a fly on the wall in some ways in the locker room and around the players, do you get the vibe that maybe we're still going to get some of the, like, positives of what Vrabel did here with a tough, well-coached, disciplined team, but being able to kind of, like, take the, unlock the leash a little, take the leash off a little bit and kind of allow guys to get a little loose and have more fun? Is that kind of the vibe that you're picking up from you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and Vrabel is a good football coach. There's no question about that. As far as a technician goes, as far as a guy who gets the most out of his players, I watched him in practice. I watched him bounce around the field. I watched him give pointers. I watched him help players grow. There's no doubt that players, from a technique standpoint, from a learning football standpoint, from a learning a tough mindset standpoint, they learn from Vrabel, and some of the lessons that he taught stay with those guys. But I do think that some of the culture he created and some of the way he teaches, some of the stuff you can do and get away with when you're going to AFC Championship games and winning, when you're going 7-10 and 6-11 and losing 18 to 24 games, I don't know that some of that stuff works quite as well. I mean, beating guys down about certain things or handling things a certain way that not everybody agreed with, but he kind of had like a my way or the highway approach. I think a new regime certainly is going to change some of that. And I think it's a different NFL. I mean, the league's changed, and you got to be more innovative. You've got to try things that are maybe different. And I think a new coaching staff with some fresh ideas will help do that. And let's not kid ourselves either. The roster is a lot different. When you go out and get Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd and on offense, you go out and get L'Jarius Sneed and Chidobe Awuzie on defense. You're upgrading key positions by doing that, and that's going to help as well.
100%. I think Mike Vrabel, his whole philosophy is he didn't want you to get too high. He didn't want you to get too low. But when vibes are already low and you're still not building those people back up, that's where it became not great from a team rapport perspective. And like Chigakonkwo said, he said the vibes are immaculate right now. So we're hoping to carry that into training camp and into the season. And hopefully, just because it's different doesn't mean it's good. But we're hoping with that, you feel good, you play good, hoping. But OTAs have concluded, and now we're less than a month away from training camp. Although it's still early on, are there any lesser-known players who have just caught your eye thus far and might have a chance of actually making this 53-man roster?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I look at the undrafted guys, and again, with some of the guys I mentioned, it makes it harder for the young guys to make the team. The undrafted free agent who impressed me the most this offseason was Gabe Judy Lally from played at Vanderbilt, then played at Tennessee, came here as an undrafted free agent. I mean, he's lined up against good receivers. He's made plays. He's been very competitive. Problem with him is he's in a position that's pretty stacked. I mean, I mentioned Snead, I mentioned Awuzie, and then McCreary's coming back, and they drafted Jarvis Brownlee, who I think is going to be really good. Trey Avery has been around here for a while. I think is a solid depth piece, and Farley. I don't know whether he makes it or not, but he's a contender. So I mean that gets you to 6 right there pretty quickly. So you think, is there room for somebody to sneak in? There may be room for a guy to sneak in and develop on the practice squad, but that's a problem that he's facing. And and I'm curious to see the backs. I like the looks of Dylan Johnson, Jabari Small, the 2 running backs. Maybe there's a chance one of those guys can do something on special teams to earn a spot. And they can develop those guys further. But I think those are a couple of the kind of undrafted ones that I'm curious about. As far as not undrafted guys, but I think newcomers, Sadiq Charles, I've been impressed with him. I think when early on this offseason, you start looking at who's going to be the right guard, and I think that's still a question that's to be determined. I think most people would have told you that they thought it would either be Brunskill or Radens. And I don't know. I kind of think sitting here in June, after watching OTAs and minicamp, I kind of feel like Sadiq Charles is the favorite right guard. And I don't know if I would have predicted that when the offseason program began. Not saying he's won it. They haven't put the pads on yet, and they've got to compete. But he's going to be a contender, and I think that might surprise some people.
Gabe Judy Lawley kind of has that Kevin Byard vibe to him, doesn't he? Where he's like this local guy who has worked really hard for his spot. Obviously wasn't drafted the same way Kevin was, but just feels like this like local homegrown talent that the Titans found. And credit to their local area scouts that have done a really good job, honestly, for the past several years. But he was a lot of fun. Like, obviously we only see what you guys can show us in the media when it comes to some of those OTAs and minicamp. But yeah, we had a show, I think it was like last week or the week before, Jake, that we talked about just the roster construction, right? Because obviously we haven't seen camp, pads aren't on, preseason games haven't shown us, we don't have that practice with Seattle yet. There's a lot to uncover first, but just like way too early predictions on the roster, you start to place, roster slots to certain positions. And we thought, man, the Titans legitimately have 7 corners that, if possible, they most likely won't. But if they kept 7 corners, there's 7, talented corners that they could keep. And I don't even think that's including Trey Avery. So I think the one question that I had, Jim, that was a little like kind of back to the topic we just moved on from a little bit, but it's specific to the roster. It was something that I've been thinking about a lot this entire offseason. And you've been around for damn near all of them. So tell us, has there been a team that you can think of in recent past? Let's go back 2 decades, right? Recent past. Let's go back 2 decades. Is there a team that has changed quite like this offseason has? Because the vibe, what we've been talking about as fans is we've been talking about how, like, yes, to Jake's point, the team's changed a lot and we don't quite know who they're going to be yet. There are many questions, but looking at everything, not just from the roster standpoint, but schematically, a bright offensive mind and Brian Callahan come in. You have one of the worst offensive lines in the league, and you bring in arguably the best offensive line coach who's ever done it. And so there's so many 180 moves that have happened for this team. In your history covering the team, has there ever been a roster that has reminded you of just the 180 that this roster has presumably made, this franchise has presumably made?
Yeah, but it's not a change for the better; it's a change for the worse. I mean, I think it was 20 years ago, or right at 20 years ago, from 2004 going into 2005. And I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I always remember because I had a story in the Tennessean that it was going to happen, and then it happened the next day that they were going to cut Fred Miller and Kevin Carter and Samori Rolle and Derek Mason and Robert Holcomb and Joe Nedney And so those were 6 cuts. Those are 6 solid players that they had that they cut in a salary cap purge. And it was a young team in 2015. That was the year they drafted Pac-Man Jones. The roster looked completely different. We all know how bad a year that ended up being, and the team eventually rebuilt, but it took them a while to get back there. That was a dramatic change because that was really the end of that great run. From 99 to 2003, team went to the playoffs 4 out of 5 years, went to 2 AFC championship games, went to the Super Bowl, probably could have won a couple of Super Bowls in that mix. Then they tried to keep it together for one more year in 2014 by restructuring contracts, and then they got so up against the cap that they had to cut all these guys and then kind of start over. So that was a change for the worst. This is the biggest, most dramatic change that I've seen as far as acquiring players. I mean, it was an off season where the team signed Kevin Wyatt and Chris Hope and David Thornton and David Givens, I think, that off season. And that was that 2008 maybe? That was a significant change in leadership and vibe in the locker room, but nothing like this. I mean, I look at my list here of guys that have been acquired, and I start this thing every year and just kind of track and Tony Pollard, Lloyd Cushenberry, Chidobe Awuzie, Kenneth Murray, Sadiq Charles, Mason Rudolph, Calvin Ridley, Sebastian Joseph Day, Tyler Boyd, Nick Vanette, Jerron Christian. That doesn't account for trades for L'Jarius Sneed and Leroy Watson. That doesn't count the draft class. I mean, that's a whole new team and key players at key position groups, and also losing some good players too. I mean, that's the thing you got to take into account. You lose Derrick Henry, obviously going elsewhere, and Aziz Al-Shaair and Sean Murphy-Bunting and Christian Fulton and a lot of these guys that have gone to other places. Aaron Brewer, changes the look of the whole team.
100%. I think it goes without saying, moving away from this Earnhardt Perkins system and bend don't break defense to this heavy spread 11 personnel under Coach Cowley and get in your face bully mentality we're going to see from Denard Wilson and that defense. Now, some fans are going to recognize this team going into the season. Is there really a position group that just keeps you up at night, tossing and turning, wondering if the players can match this coaching staff's new scheme? Because sometimes the Jimmies and Joes don't always match the X's and O's.
Yeah, and the year, Chris, the year of all those is 2006. It was is the year they signed all those guys: Hope, Mawai, Givens, and Thornton. Position groups I think that have I think the biggest question mark as far as position groups go. I mean, obviously, inside backer, how that's going to shake out. Who's going to win that job alongside Kenneth Murray, Jack Gibbons or Cedric Gray. That's what I'm curious about. Curious to see what's going to happen at safety. While Monty Hooker is going to be there, I'm not so sure this team's starting safety next to him is on the roster right now. I don't think he is. I think he'll be added at some point here in the coming month or so. I think the biggest question mark for me as far as position goes, I'm not saying they don't have the talent. I'm just saying there's a lot to be sorted out as offensive line because everything is different. I mean, I think the left side, we know it's going to be Cushenberry and Skoronski and Latham. But the right side, I mentioned Sadiq Charles earlier, but who's going to win right guard? Who's going to win right tackle? How's Latham going to be, playing left for the first time in a long time? And how those guys can be able to gel, during training camp and preseason games and really a lot of walkthrough practices, because that's kind of what training camp's turned into now. And under a new position coach and Bill Callahan, who's teaching them different things. I mean, that's the biggest question mark for me on this team. Yeah, you've got I wonder how certain guys, other guys are going to fit in and how they're going to play. But offensive line is important, and there's more change there than anywhere else on this roster. And curious to see how it plays out.
Jim, we made a joke about the offensive line in preseason. We were like, man, I feel like in preseason games this year, we're going to be just staring at the offensive line. Like,
Yeah.
skill
Well, that's what I
position,
do.
cool,
Yeah.
sure. But this is
Yeah.
interesting here on the offensive line.
Well, I mean, I'm not kidding you when I tell you that I go out to every practice, not just the ones over the media. I've been out to I've been out to all the OTAs. I went and watched most of the off-season workout program, and I've never spent so much time on the practice field in the off-season, really just trying to learn the team because there's so many new players. And I like to, when the guys come out the door, I like to be able to tell 100 yards away who it is just from the body type or how they walk. And so that's one of the reasons I've been out there. But the days I've been out there is I've spent most of my time watching. Every day I watch the offensive line and a good bulk of practice. Dave McGinnis is over there. We always stand over there and kind of talk, during that part. And it's everything's new. I mean, Bill Callahan's brought so many unique individual drills, whether it's the two, Berth and Olga, the new big blocking sleds they have, or they've got a drill where guys should kind of have like a pulley they're tied to and trying to resist pressure on the back end while they're taking on the guy up front. They've got different blocking sleds where they're working on combo blocks. They do so much different stuff out there. It's actually very fun to watch the O-line, and usually that's a period I like. I'm just going to watch the receivers because they're more exciting to watch. But I'll be watching the line a whole bunch in practice and a whole bunch in games, and curious to see how it plays out.
100%. I think you said that you like to be able to spot these players from 100 yards away. Do any of these players just jump out from you and you go, is that 90? Who's 99 out there? Is that really Rashad Weaver?
Yeah.
So who do you think just put in the most work this offseason? And who do you think you could label most improved from last season going in through these OTAs, going into training camp?
Well, I'm not trying to slide anybody. I think J.C. Latham's put in the most work. He's not a newcomer. He's a rookie, but I watch it. He is out there. He's one of the first guys out there every day. I'll look out there. Sometimes he's out there by himself, hour after practice doing stuff. He spends extra time on the sleds. This guy is very impressed with him. It's hard to believe he's 21 years old, and I could spot him from 200 yards away coming out the door just because of how big he is and what a physical presence he is. He would definitely, I've been impressed with him so much. As far as guys improving from last year to this year, I think Tyjae Spears probably somebody that jumps out at me. He was just finding his way this time last year. Now he certainly looks the part and he's going to get a lot more opportunities. Been impressed by his growth. Other guys, I think Roger McCreary is another one who I've been noticing practice. Looks a lot more fluid, looks a lot more confident. Josh Wiley, I think is going to emerge as a much bigger factor this year. And I think a part of that is because he's got such a good relationship with Levis and because he's gotten a little bit bigger and because he kind of isn't swimming like he was when he first got here last year. I think those are the guys that maybe jump out to me the most.
Yeah. Big juice man, Josh Wiley. Let's go back to the departures. Obviously, in recent years, we've lost Derrick Henry, Taylor Lewan, Bill Jones, Kevin Byard. Who do you think will emerge as these new leaders in this team? Obviously, Jeffrey Simmons stands out amongst most, but who are some of these other guys that you see being vocal out there?
Yeah, it's funny, Levis, and again, I don't think anybody's trying to take a shot at Vrabel when they say things like this, but like even Levis early this offseason just talked about how guys have emerged as leaders that in the past had always been kind of quiet and subdued. So I think a lot of guys, I think that's a good problem to have is when you have a tough time when it comes down to choosing captains because you got so many guys who are worthy. Simmons, obviously, one of the guys on defense. Amani Hooker, one of the guys on defense. Arden Key leads in a different way on defense, and so does Harold Landry. I mean, Key and Landry are completely opposite personalities, Landry likes to keep to himself more, doesn't like to talk a lot. Arden Key likes to talk a lot. He doesn't keep to himself ever. He's always stirring something up. But I think all those guys have qualities to lead in their own way. I mean, Cushenberry will be a leader, even though it's a first-year deal for him here. But he's a center playing in a position that he knows has natural leadership, importance there, and he's going to take that on. Other guys will lead different ways. Like Hopkins. I mean, Hopkins, just watch him work if you're a young guy, and that kind of speaks for itself, even if he doesn't have to say it all the time.
Jim, I have a fun question for you. It's a little off topic from what we're talking here, but this is something I've always wondered. I think this is kind of fun. What kind of access do you have working for the team that is different from some of your peers in the media? So like for the average fan, a lot of us see all media members like almost equally, right? In terms of, we see you at the press conferences asking the same types of questions, but you work for the team. And so your output is, your approach is obviously a little different. You're more team centric and team minded with what you produce and how you talk about the team. But what are some of like the fun aspects to that? Like how does your position in the media differ from like your average, from your Paul Kuharsky or one of those guys?
Well, I get to ride on the team plane, and I get to eat in the team cafeteria. I mean, those are
yes,
two
sir.
fun things. But,
hold on,
benefits.
1 second, Jim. Hold on. I'm so glad you just said that. I never get to brag about this, and it was one of the best benefits of working for a team. Talk to us about media dinner or media lunch, Jim. It is elite. It is so good. There is access. I don't know if this is the case for football, but when I worked for the Mavs, when we were on game day, we had media dinner because most of them were night games, and we had access as staff to go and eat with the rest of media and the folks who are working the game. And boy, they fed us good. It was really, really good food. Do you guys have that type of access too?
Well, I mean, before I started work, it's funny that working for the team, there's a business side of the organization, and then there's a football side of the organization. And for the longest time, I was on the business side, and I used to bring a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, probably a pack of Doritos and 3 Oreos for lunch every day. And sometimes I throw a turkey with cheese in there, maybe some Cheez-Its in there sometime, maybe another butter. That was my variety that I had when I brought my lunch in my Kroger sack. I got moved to the football side, and football side gets to eat in the cafeteria. And the options are a lot better in there. I will say that. I mean, you usually get your choice of fish. They've sometimes got lobster in there. You've always got steaks in there. You got chicken. You got Taco Tuesday. You got, all kinds of veggies. You've got great desserts. You've got salads. You've got hot sandwiches if you want them. You got stir fry if you're going to do that. I try to just stick with the basics. Like I'm not standing at the line getting a special order when you got, Jeffrey Simmons waiting as well. Like I just try to get to the line and get out, just because I know that food's not for me. But luckily I do have the benefits of eating in there. That options are good. Breakfast, I eat, either pancakes or sausage and gravy, or waffles or omelets, or you name it. Like I'm not trying to flex here, but the options are good in there for sure, and I do enjoy that part of it. My wife said that when I talk about how good I eat at the office, she kind of feels like I'm kind of putting her cooking down at home, so I got to watch myself some. But that is a benefit, and travel is a lot easier going with the team because working for the newspaper, doing my own, it's a lot. You're traveling the day before. You got the 6 a.m. flights to try to get back for the press conference the next day. It is a lot easier to go with the team and then take a flight back right after the game. Those are some benefits. Now, as far as access, and I think a lot of people, even people like I say compete against, people that I work side by side around here on a regular basis, I think, some of them probably think I get special access because I work for the team. And I'm not saying that working for the team doesn't have its benefits. I get to go in certain parts of the building and I see guys, but I'm not abusing my privileges working for the team. And I'll be honest with you, I think I have less access in doing my job working for the team than I did when I worked at the Tennessean. And what I mean by that is I'm not calling agents. You know, when something negative happens with the team, I can't go searching for analysts to talk about that.
Yeah.
I can't, you know, when we trade for somebody, I have to wait, you know, until it's official. Like when I was working at the Tennessean, I was always trying to be on the front line of breaking every news story there was. I was consumed for that to be a part of my job, whether the guy was getting cut, whether he was getting traded, whether he was, you know, getting signed, whether he had an ACL, an MCL, was there a fight on the team plane? Was there a guy coming in on a visit? Who's the team drafting? Who were the pre-draft visits? I tried to get everything. And I had unlimited resources to try to find out that information, where I was trying to talk to people in the building, away from the building, agents, family members, people who work at a hotel where the team stay. I mean, now I'm more limited on the people I can track down. And yes, there are some benefits to working for the team, but also there are some other things that people have the edge up on me that some of them maybe don't take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think all the benefits that do go inside that, I think you've earned every penny of them. I've never heard the words Jim Wyatt and not a fan in a sentence, and I don't think it's ever been said. But
no one's ever said Jim Wyatt, that scumbag, said this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I promise you that whether I'm working here or whether I'm working at the Tennessee, I'm always going to bust my butt to try to do as good a job as I possibly can. When I joined the team, I know that people think that, oh, he's working for the team, he's just going to kick his feet up, kind of like I am now, but kick his feet up and just coast. I'm never going to do that. Like I feel fortunate to have the job that I have. I'm still going to do as good a job as I possibly can. I know I can't write certain things. I know I can't be critical like other people can, but I try to tell it like it is as much as I can. I try to produce as much content as I can. I try to be accessible to fans. I try to do as good a job as I can with the job description that I have now. And I always will be like that.
Definitely. I think we want to be respectful of your time. So I just have one more question before we get out of here. And that is, who has been your favorite player to just have a discussion within the building? Maybe this wasn't an interview setting. Maybe it wasn't even a superstar. Just somebody you think is a good dude.
You're talking about the history of the Titans?
Just all of it. Yep, just all of it.
Man, that's hard. I mean, because there's been so many great guys that I've dealt with, Derrick Henry was always such a great guy, always treated me well. I was always just so impressed by how he showed up and was the same guy every day. He was a hard-nosed player, but also just a quiet guy who went about his business off the field and was great to deal with. I get in trouble when I start thinking about favorites. I mean, it's Stephen Tulloch. You guys remember Stephen Tulloch that played here?
Of course. They still have the tackle record.
Great linebacker. Yeah.
Did Aziz take it?
What's that?
Stephen Tulloch has our tackle record, right? Single season tackle record?
That's probably so. He probably had about 300 tackles one of those years. I don't know what it was. Stephen Tulloch, when I always think about guys I enjoyed being around, and he's fresh on my mind because I saw him at the draft in Detroit this year, walking down the street. He always comes to mind as one of my favorites that's ever been around here. John Thornton, that played many years ago, always one of my favorites. Brett Kern, who was my next door neighbor, I'd be in trouble if I left him out because he used to live right across the street from me until he got a new contract and then moved into a bigger neighborhood. There's so many guys that I've have such fond memories of being around. And a lot of those guys, what I appreciate the most is just, working for the team. These guys obviously know, I'm not going to burn them. I'm not, if I ever wrote something or did something out of line, I would get fired before they did. So they would, I understand people trust me now, but I guess what I appreciate most when I think about my days with the Tennessean is the relationships I was able to build with some of those players when I wasn't working for the team and I was working in the media. And I'm not saying that I was counting on certain guys, was working guys to be sources, but they treated me fairly and they knew I was trying to be honest and not trying to burn them. And so I appreciate the guys who treated me like I was working for the team, even when I wasn't.
Definitely.
And Eddie George, I don't know if I mentioned Eddie. Eddie goes down.
It's your Twitter profile pic.
Yeah, he goes down as one of my all-time favorites, and I think about him because I first started covering this team in '99, and he was a star here. I was just coming in as a young guy that didn't know what he was doing, and Jeff Legwald and Paul Kuharski kind of showed me the ropes then, and players like Eddie and Steve and Frank and Bruce Matthews and Javon Curse and Blaine Bishop and Samari Roll. I could go down the list there. They all treated me well then, even as I was learning on the go. But then I think about all the years I've been around, and now I see Eddie, as a father and as a husband and as a coach at TSU, and somebody who now is somebody that I keep in touch with on a regular basis. That relationship's now going on 25 years, and I've always appreciated how he's handled himself.
I love it. Well, that's going to wrap it up today for us guys. I know, Jim, you put out your Ask Jim mailbag earlier today. I know you had a Rashad Weaver article come out a couple days ago, if I remember correctly. What's around the corner for Titans Online right now?
Well, I got a lot of stuff, kind of stuff to kind of fill gaps. I'm getting ready to disappear for a little while, so I've got some feature stories coming up. I'm going to start on my position previews on July the 8th. I'm going to have some stories to get us there, but starting on July the 8th, running through July the 22nd, I'm going to have 11 position previews, kind of getting us ready for camp. So I'm going to work ahead on some of that. I've got a little bit of a snafu that I'm dealing with as of this morning. Hope it gets resolved soon. I tweeted out that mailbag, and I think I retweeted I was going to be on the show, and then not long after, my Twitter account is just completely shut down on me. Like I can't get in, and trying to. I've been locked out. It says that. Let me show you the message. This message that I got says that they got suspicious login prevented, and I can't access my account, and so I'm trying to get that resolved. So if that doesn't get resolved, you may not see anything on my Twitter account for a while. Hopefully that's not the case. Maybe a break from social media that I wasn't planning on, but keep your fingers crossed. If you guys have any connections with Elon Musk, put in a good word for me. Hopefully we can get this resolved before too long. Otherwise, my Twitter accounts could be quiet for a while. If you see me back tweeting again, that means things got worked out.
Maybe Elon's a DM really quick. Hold on.
Yeah, maybe Elon's watching this, and then he can.
Elon, very big fan of the show. It's known. That's canon. So we appreciate you coming on as always. You guys can check in. We'll be here Thursday morning like we are every week, 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. Go check out the film breakdown I put out earlier this week. But
well
love
done,
you guys.
Jake, by the way.
I appreciate it. But we love you guys. We mean it. We'll check y'all next time. Peace.